Good afternoon. Welcome to our daily press briefing online and live on EBS. Today is Friday, 18th of December. Before moving to your questions, as usual, we have a few announcements to make. First of all, ou plutôt en français, d'abord, hier, la présidente Ursula von der Leyen, le président du Parlement européen David Sassoli et la chancelière Angela Merkel, au nom de la présidence du Conseil, ont signé la déclaration commune sur les priorités législatives pour 2021. Dans cette déclaration, ils se sont engagés à adopter rapidement les propositions nécessaires pour stimuler la reprise après la pandémie du coronavirus, tout en saisissant les possibilités offertes par les transitions climatiques et numériques. Et les trois présidents ont également signé hier, pour la toute première fois, des conclusions communes sur les objectifs et priorités politiques jusqu'à la fin de ce mandat. Plus d'informations sont disponibles dans le Daily News. Let me now call Marta, who has good news on our efforts to support Europe's recovery from the crisis. Marta.
Thank you, Eric. Et effectivement, la Commission se félicite de l'accord politique qui a été trouvé tôt ce matin sur la facilité pour la reprise et la résilience, l'instrument central au cœur du plan de relance de l'Union européenne, Next Generation EU. Cet accord politique est une étape cruciale pour mettre 672 milliards d'euros à disposition des États membres sous forme de subventions et de prêts pour soutenir leurs réformes et leurs investissements et sortir plus fort de la crise actuelle. L'objectif est d'atténuer les conséquences économiques et sociales de la pandémie du coronavirus et de rendre les économies de l'Union européenne plus durables, plus résilientes et mieux préparées aux défis de la transition numérique et écologique. Bien évidemment, plus d'informations sont disponibles dans notre communiqué de presse aujourd'hui. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Marta. Et finalement, Johannes va monter pour une annonce sur notre soutien aux startups et aux PME.
Merci, Eric. Today we are pleased to announce that we have selected 38 of Europe's most promising startups and SMEs to receive 176 million euros from the European Innovation Council Accelerator. The companies come from 18 countries and their innovations range from rapid detection of sepsis to indoor plant lighting and hazardous waste treatment by robotics. 21% of the supported companies are led by a female CEO, so a woman. Each company will receive a grant of up to 2.5 million euro, and half of the beneficiaries, so that is 19, will also get a direct equity investment from the newly established EIC fund. Following this successful pilot, the European Innovation Council will be fully launched next year under Horizon Europe, and as always, we have more information for you in a daily news item.
Thank you very much, Johannes. With this, we are ready to take your questions, and I pass the floor to Odile. Odile, tu as la parole.
Oui, bonjour. C'est à propos du Brexit et de la pêche. Je ne sais pas si effectivement Dan peut communiquer, mais comment nous allons pouvoir expliquer aux gens de la mer qu'en raison d'une souveraineté symbolique, les négociations du Brexit risquent de capoter. Merci.
Dan.
Bonjour Odile et merci pour ta question. Je pense que tu as entendu ce que Michel Barnier a dit dans le Parlement ce matin et aussi ce que la présidente a dit mercredi dans le Parlement. Donc je pense que tu comprends tout à fait notre position et que nous essayons tout pour résoudre tous les problèmes dans les négociations pour arriver à un accord. Effectivement, je ne peux pas entrer dans les détails maintenant. Les négociations sont en cours, mais tu sais que nous continuons pour faire notre mieux pour arriver à un accord.
Merci Dan. Y a-t-il d'autres questions sur les négociations avec le Royaume-Uni? Merci de ne garder votre main levée que si c'est une question sur ces négociations. MOSE, je vois que tu as une question.
Yes, thank you, Eric. I hope you hear me today. Yes, I have a related question because I noticed that the Commission President issued a statement yesterday saying, indeed, that there are big differences still in particular when it comes to fisheries. And people don't understand why. And I would like to ask you if you could explain, because I would think that both UK and the EU share the same concerns about overfishing in the seas and oceans. So my question is also especially, will the UK continue, let's say, to comply with this special EU regulation on illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing, which is so important, let's say, to prevent overfishing? Is that an issue which is difficult to solve?
Hi, Mose. I think that there are many issues that are difficult to solve in the question on fisheries. I think nobody is contesting the fact that there are going to be changes after the end of the transition period, once the UK leaves the single market and the customs union. What we are working hard on right now is to find a new solution for a future partnership with the UK that can provide a sustainable solution in fisheries and all other questions, by the way, when it comes to our economic partnership, our security partnership, when it comes to internal security, amongst other things. But obviously, you'll understand that I can't now go into the nitty-gritty of what our colleagues are discussing right now in the negotiating room down the road.
Thank you. Verena. You have an issue with your mic source today, it seems.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Super. Thanks. Sorry for that. I'm Verena SCHMITT-ROSCHMANN with the German press agency. Dan, maybe you could help me in interpreting the dictum of the final hours. Is the Sunday deadline set by the European Parliament accepted by the negotiating team? Thank you.
Hi, Verena. I fully understand your interest in deadlines. Of course, I'm not going to comment on that right now. You know that we are working hard to reach an agreement. Again, we're perfectly aware that the UK will leave the single market in 14 days' time. We're all aware of the time constraints, but of course, we're going to continue working towards a deal, and that's all that I can say right now.
Griselda.
Hop là, maintenant. Merci beaucoup. Excuse-moi, Daniel, mais je crus bien entendre M. Barnier quand il a dit que c'était son dernier effort devant le député. Et, je ne voudrais pas interpréter ce qu'ils ont compris, mais quand tu as donné un deadline jusqu'à dimanche et le négociateur te dit qu'il va faire le dernier effort, est-ce qu'il n'est pas en train d'accepter ces deadlines? C'est ma première question. Et puis ma deuxième question, c'est sur la pêche. J'ai aussi compris clairement que l'objectif n'est pas que le bateau reste dans les eaux britanniques, mais que sa sortie se fasse dans une transition juste. Est-ce que tous les États membres acceptent ces principes de sortie juste des eaux britanniques? Merci beaucoup.
Bonjour, Griselda. D'abord, sur ta première question, sur un deadline, nous prenons note, bien sûr, des déclarations faites par le Parlement européen. Je pense que Michel Barnier a bien répondu aujourd'hui, ce matin, dans le Parlement. Mais au-delà de ça, je ne peux pas entrer dans les détails. Nous continuons à négocier. Nous voulons un accord. Mais aujourd'hui, je ne sais pas si on aura un accord ou pas et quand on aura un accord ou pas. Deuxièmement, sur la pêche, comme la présidente a dit hier après l'appel avec le Premier ministre Boris Johnson, la pêche est un des grands sujets, une des grandes divergences entre nous et le Royaume-Uni, et nous continuons à travailler pour essayer de trouver un compromis, une solution entre nous deux. Mais à ce stade, je ne peux pas entrer dans les détails sur l'accès aux eaux territoriales, les quotas et toutes ces questions. Et je pense que tu comprendras ça.
Merci. David.
Oui, merci. David Carretta, Radio Radicale. Excuse-moi si j'insiste, mais dans la déclaration d'hier de la présidente, elle a dit les négociations continueront demain. donc aujourd'hui. Ce matin, Michel Barnier a dit, ce matin, on va faire la dernière tentative de trouver un accord. Et donc, ma question est simple. Est-ce qu'aujourd'hui, c'est la dernière tentative? Elle va se conclure aujourd'hui. Et deuxième question pour toi, Eric, est-ce que vous prévoyez une conversation téléphonique ou une autre rencontre avec le Premier ministre Johnson au courant de la journée ou dans les prochains jours? Merci.
Merci David. Je vais répondre aux deux questions. Sur la première question, le message de la présidente doit s'interpréter comme voulant dire que les négociations continuaient aujourd'hui. Ça ne veut pas dire qu'elles devaient se terminer aujourd'hui. Donc il ne faut pas interpréter cela autrement que simplement de dire, voilà, on s'est parlé, les négociations continuent à partir de demain. Il n'y a pas de fin prévu, acté, officialisé ou quoi que ce soit. Et bien entendu, la présidente et le Premier ministre resteront en contact comme de besoin en fonction de l'évolution de ce dossier et nous vous tiendrons informés le moment venu, s'il y en a un, sur leur prochaine conversation. Catherine.
Hello.
Try again. Yes,
Is that working?
It's working, yes.
Very odd. Anyways, so a few little questions. From the President's presentation to the Parliament earlier in the week, I was given the impression that state aid, of the level playing field issues, state aid had more or less been resolved, whereas standards, in particular, how they would be protected in future, was outstanding. Just want to confirm that that's the case. This morning, Philippe Lambert said that he would prefer to see a sort of 1 to 2 month continuation of current arrangements if there wasn't an agreement. Is that possible? And then a final question, this may not be for Daniel or you, but it's about the 5 billion Brexit fund in the budget. How quickly can this be activated? I mean, what is, the hardest, most difficult moments for companies will be in, I think, January, February, adapting and facing problems at borders, etc. So, can they, receive an immediate reassurance from the Commission? Would they have to, I take it they would have to go through their national government departments to request some sort of access to the fund? Will it have its own mechanisms or will it go through the Solidarity Fund? I mean, just a little bit of how it would work.
Thank you. Dan. And we'll see if Balázs answers the last question.
Yeah, hi Catherine, I'll answer you on your first two questions. I think first of all, yesterday after the phone call, the President stated that, we're going to continue negotiating on all topics, but in particular on fisheries. But that does not exclude the fact that there are other open questions as well. And there are open questions on the level playing field, amongst other things, of course. But I cannot say from here on the podium that X, Y, or Z is finalized or not as the negotiations are ongoing. As for whether or not the transition period can be extended, I think I've explained from the podium before that is not legally possible. You know that there was one possibility to extend the transition period, and that was if you did so before for the month of June.
Thank you. Let us see if there are other questions before then turning to Balázs on the Brexit fund at the end of the sequence on Brexit. Please only keep your hand raised if it is on Brexit. Yossi, is your question on Brexit? If not, unraise your hand. But if, okay, thank you. Griselda.
Merci de me redonner la parole. C'était juste pour préciser, moi je n'avais pas demandé des détails sur le codage. Je n'ai même pas demandé qu'est-ce que c'est dans la tête de M. Barnier une transition juste. J'ai juste demandé si tous les États membres, les 27, soutenaient le principe d'une sortie des eaux britanniques de ces bateaux. C'est ça ce que je demande. Est-ce que tout le monde est d'accord sur ces principes? Merci beaucoup.
Mais Griselda, excuse-moi, mais il y a un mandat du Conseil qui fixe le cadre de la négociation pour l'Union européenne. Et c'est dans le cadre de ce mandat que nous travaillons. Et la présidente a elle-même eu l'occasion de dire à plusieurs reprises que, bien entendu, nous respectons le souhait du Royaume-Uni, au bout du compte, de retrouver la souveraineté sur ses eaux nationales. Le débat se situe ailleurs. Il se situe sur la manière dont cela va se faire. Voilà ce qu'on peut te dire. Y a-t-il d'autres questions sur le Brexit pour nous? Je n'en vois pas, donc je vais faire monter Balázs pour la question plus spécifique sur le Brexit Fund. Thank you, Dan.
Indeed, good afternoon. A little update on that front. So what we call the Brexit Adjustment Reserve is indeed part of the overall MFF agreement, which was, by the way, struck yesterday, is one of the flexibility mechanisms under the next MFF. Now, what we know already is that the overall size is 5 billion euro, and the objective is, of course, to counter the adverse consequences of Brexit and to compensate the sectors which will be hit the hardest by the departure of the United Kingdom from the European Union. Now, in terms of the timeline, we are working hard on this piece of legislation. It will come soon, but at the moment I'm not able to give you a specific time.
Thank you very much. So I pass the floor back to Yossi. Yossi, if you are still with us. Thank you. Yossi, go ahead. Press speak. It seems you have an issue with your mic source as well. Whilst you try to sort that out, we will move to vaccines and a question from Thomas.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you hear me. Given that this is the last midday briefing, it's actually a technical question for you, I guess, on how do you plan to communicate next week. Okay, the decision of EMA is going to be for the press department of EMA to communicate, but then there is a commission decision coming within 2 days, I understand. And then there is the start of the vaccination day, the 28th, if I understand it correctly. So I was wondering whether you already have details about your communication plans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. Rest assured, the midday, as you well know, is not the only channel through which we communicate with you and with the media more generally. And of course, we will be communicating around the different stages as they develop. Now it's Christmas season. There are always Christmas gifts, and in terms of communication, I will ask you to be patient. You will get the communication arrangements as they are developed. For the moment, the wrappings are being prepared. Are there other questions for us on vaccines today? Raf, if your question is on vaccines, go ahead.
Yes, good day. It is on vaccines, and it's a question on Pfizer. There have been, reports about delays of delivery of Pfizer and delays in time because of that. And I just wondered how you at the Commission are being kept informed of that, what you can do about that, and whether it's also part of the contract that you should have speedy and time-set deliveries of those vaccines. Thank you.
Thank you, Raf. A question for Stefan.
Thank you very much, Raf. Yes, of course, the Commission is in contact with the different companies developing these vaccines to make sure that deliveries can be arranged. As you know, President von der Leyen has announced that on 27, 28, and 29, we would have our common vaccination days. So we're working very hard to make sure that we have the deliveries of the vaccine so that we can go ahead with such vaccinations. Of course, this all requires first that the European Medicines Agency gives a green light to the vaccine. Thank you.
Raf, you have a follow-up.
Yes, please. It's not specifically about the first few days. I mean, this is a very long-term effort to get everybody vaccinated, and I was more worried about the delay in delivery over the next month or 2 months that Pfizer is facing. And I wondered, and then again, the same questions: what can you do about it, and do you have any legal recourse in that case? Thank you.
Thank you, Raf. Delivery schedules, delivery arrangements are contractually laid down. We are in contact, as I said, with the company, so I don't think I can add much more than what I said. So it's indeed not just a matter of ensuring deliveries from the beginning, but we have to make sure that deliveries take place in the ongoing months as well. Obviously, as far as this is concerned, we have our contractual arrangements. We remain in contact with the company, and we're all working on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Stéphane. Let's continue with questions on vaccines. David.
Oui, merci. Vous aurez sûrement vu la polémique aussi en Belgique par rapport au fait que les prix des vaccins ont été publiés par un membre du gouvernement. Et aujourd'hui, Pfizer dit que cette publication est une rupture de la clause de confidentialité. Je voulais savoir quelles sont les conséquences.
Stéphane.
Bonjour David. Nous ne pouvons pas nous prononcer sur ce cas. Comme tu sais, tout ce qui concerne des informations comme le prix des vaccins est couvert par la confidentialité. C'est une obligation très importante. Et donc, nous n'avons pas à nous prononcer sur cela. Je tiens à souligner qu'il y a des bonnes raisons pour lesquelles nous avons cette confidentialité. Évidemment, c'est dans l'intérêt de la société, c'est aussi dans l'intérêt des négociations qui sont en cours avec d'autres sociétés ou avec d'autres développeurs de vaccins. Mais je ne peux pas donner plus de détails ou plus de commentaires sur le cas auquel tu te réfères.
David, follow-up.
Oui, je ne voulais pas de commentaires sur le cas. Je voulais savoir qu'est-ce qui se passe quand la clause de confidentialité est brisée ou pas respectée.
Stéphane.
David, ma réponse ne va pas te surprendre. Je ne peux pas aller dans cette situation-là. Il s'agit d'informations, de provisions, de dispositions contractuelles qui sont confidentielles. Donc, je ne vais pas me prononcer sur le contenu de ces parties des contrats. Merci.
Okay, we stay on the issue of vaccines. David. Is your question on vaccines or on health in general?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, on vaccines. I just wonder if I could press this question on the pricing. I've just never quite understood the public interest in the confidentiality given the global health stakes of this particular procurement process, that it's not like any other procurement process that we've seen before. And so how is it, if Stéphane could maybe try and explain in rudimentary terms for some of us who are not perhaps sophisticated enough to follow, what is the public interest that has been served by confidentiality in this process where the demand is so tipped in compared to a normal process where you have businesses that compete for a contract with government. The government, controls the shots here. The government, obviously, governments around the world want as much vaccine as they can get. So how is it that the public interest is not better served by transparency where citizens, journalists can determine if there's reasonability behind these prices? I mean, we're not going to pretend that this breach didn't occur. We saw a dramatic range in prices from down just over $1 or €1 per dose up to almost 20 per dose. I don't know if that's because Moderna is on the expensive end, is a US company and everything in the US is expensive, but let's please not be naive in pretending that the numbers aren't out there. But again, getting back to the basics, if you could just, Stefan, help us through where is the public interest in this transparency, in this lack of transparency, in the confidentiality, understanding, of course, that that doesn't change that it may be legally required or contractually required, but where is the interest there? Thank you.
It's contractually required. It's I think you've answered the question yourself. We would not have had those contracts if there had not been that confidentiality clause inserted. And by the way, from what I understand, this question is always asked of us here in the European Union, but from what I understand, the same applies to all the other countries that have signed contracts on vaccines. So we are simply in the same situation as everybody else. Stefan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, thank you. Indeed, I would like to add that this confidentiality is in the interest of the companies without any doubt, because it's covering sensitive business information, but it's also indeed in the public interest. It's in the interest of the negotiations. It's in the interest of the Commission, the member states, and of the European citizens, because we want to reach fair agreements, fair deals with the different companies. If all this sensitive information were to be made public, this would weaken the position of the negotiators of the Commission, the member states involved in these negotiations. And in order to avoid that, it is also important that confidentiality is respected. Thank you.
And let me remind you, David, that as we've said here a number of times, the fact is that the information on the prices is available to the member states who took part in the negotiations on these contracts, and that Mrs. Kyriakides has also made some statements as to the efforts we would undertake to make part of the information available to the European Parliament. Other questions? David, you have a follow-up.
Well, I just wish thank you, Eric. First of all, to note that in fact the confidentiality clauses are something that the Commission has agreed to, so they're not just presumed to exist. I mean, it starts to get circular in a way. But Stefan, maybe if I could just press you to again, in rudimentary terms, you say it benefits the negotiation. What undermines, what in the process is undermined by having a sense of what the pricing is out there in the public domain? How does that undermine, how does that drive up potentially the cost for governments? I just haven't followed,
David, I'm sorry,
the economics behind it.
I understand, but we're not going to get into this. We have answered everything that we can answer on this issue. There would not have been contracts if these clauses had not existed. We may regret it, I understand that. But the fact is that a conditionality, in order to be able to sign contracts to ensure the delivery of these vaccines, was part of the negotiation. So we might as well not have had any contracts, and then we would not be having this discussion. I understand fully, the Commission understands fully the point that you're making about the interest of publicizing the prices of vaccines. And it is indeed a very relevant debate. We are not questioning that whatsoever. What we are saying is that this was part of the process to conclude these contracts, and we are not in a position to change that situation. And there's really nothing that we can add to that. Let us continue on the issue of vaccines and vaccination more generally. Catherine.
Position, it's a giant market, and it has the market power to negotiate a good price. But President von der Leyen has always said that this is a global issue. You know, we're nobody's safe until everybody's safe in a way. And I'm just wondering, will the EU use its market power to help other countries, poorer countries, also get a better deal on the price of these vaccines?
Thank you, Catherine. I think we have explained in quite some detail here on a number of occasions all the efforts that we are making in order to ensure that poorer countries can have access to the vaccines. in particular by organizing donations of surplus vaccines to third countries, in particular in our neighborhood, and through the COVAX facility that is there to help precisely purchase these vaccines. It is in that context that we are making the effort to help countries that do not have the same market power as we have negotiate access to vaccines. Let us stay on the issue of vaccines. Yossi, I understand your question is on something else. MOSE, if your question is on vaccines, go ahead.
If this issue is covered by confidentiality, I'm referring to the question about the number of doses which member states will start to receive now after Christmas. Considering, let's say, these production problems with Pfizer, can we expect that, let's say, the first batches of doses will be distributed to member states on a per rota basis? Because I think that's very important to know for all citizens in the member states, so they can have an idea how these vaccination programs will be, let's say, developed or in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. Stéphane.
Thank you very much, MOSE. As far as the first batch is concerned, on which we are concentrating our efforts now in view of the vaccination days of the 27th, 28th, 29th of September, we are in contact, obviously, as has been said a few times, with the company to ensure that we have a sufficient number of doses that can be shared with or sent to the member states. In general, as I have already said in the past, as far as the number of doses is concerned, the EU vaccine strategy lays down a distribution key based on the population of numbers, and this is something which is the general principle which applies to the delivery of our vaccines. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions for us on vaccines? Marina, is your question on vaccines? If so, go ahead.
Yes, Eric, thank you. Yeah, thank you. We saw the information from Commissioner Varhey that he today spoke about vaccine distribution on the Western Balkans countries, but also now we have breaking news that after this meeting, few of the countries in Western Balkans are very, as they say, furious because they been said that the no vaccines through COVAX will be available for Western Balkans before May. Can somebody confirm what was the story during today's talk on this meeting and what will happen with this COVAX and Western Balkans distribution? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if Anna can provide us with details on the phone calls or the contacts between Commissioner Varhey and the Western Balkans. Anna.
Hi, many thanks. So I'm very sorry, but I don't have a detailed readout of what was discussed in the meeting. You've seen Commissioner's tweets. I think that our message from our side is that, as Eric very well explained, is that, we are going to work with our partners and with our member states to be able to facilitate some of the doses that will arrive in Europe, also for our Western Balkans. We are also working through COVAX to help more broadly in the rest of the world, and specific calendars for COVAX as to when they can do the deployment of the vaccines. I think that's really for COVAX to explain, because of course they are the ones that are negotiating as well with the different producers. So I would probably leave it at that.
Marina, you have a follow-up.
Yes, thank you. Just a short follow-up. Obviously, today there was a mentioning about the 70 million of euros as a help to Western Balkans from European Commission regarding the purchase of the vaccines. Do you maybe have any information on this?
Anna. Anna?
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I cannot confirm any figure for now, Marina, but we are working, of course, in also making funds available from our side that would, of course, help in this joint effort with the member states as well to make sure that there are vaccines that can be deployed in a timely manner, as Commissioner has said, also for our Western Balkan partners. As regards to specific announcements in terms of funding, you know that we would make them available once there's a decision taken in any case.
Thank you. Tommaso, a question on vaccines.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the floor, Tommaso Gallavotti, the Kronos Italy. It's just a question about the vaccine developed by Pfizer and BioNTech, because if I'm not mistaken, I've read that in the US, the vials contain not 5 doses that they should contain, but sometimes 6 or even 7. Is that because the US paid more for the vials? Because according to the prices which are published by the Belgian Secretary of State, the EU paid 12 euro per doses. Thank you.
We have no comment, Tommaso, and you know it fully well. We're certainly not going to start discussing the different contract arrangements signed by the United States. So we have absolutely no comment to make on the prices, the quantities of vials, etc., etc. Werner.
My question is not on vaccines.
Okay, then apologies, but I will pass the floor again to Yossi, who has been asking for the floor for a long time. Yossi, press speak.
Yossi, press speak.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. My question is the following. Yossi Lemkovic from European Jewish Press. The European Commission has said on many occasions that it's attached to freedom of religion. I would like to know how does it receive yesterday's ruling by the European Court of Justice upholding a ban on ritual slaughter, which is, as you know, a very important religious practice for Jews in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. Question for Christian.
Yes.
Oh dear, perhaps, Christian, switch off your camera. And let's do this. See if you can connect on the phone. So it does not.
So it does not. Trying again.
Yes,
does
go ahead.
It work better now? Apologies for that. Okay. The Commission takes note of the court ruling. It will be for the referring Belgian court to assess, in light of the ruling, the justification in the specific case of the Flemish rule on reversible standing for ritual slaughter. Let me make one thing very clear, as you put this in the context of religious freedom for the Jewish communities. The Jewish communities are and always will be welcome in Europe. Of course, the Commission respects the judgment of the European Court of Justice. As you said, it's for the Belgian referring court to follow up in the concrete case. Let me, however, point you to the words of President von der Leyen in a speech which she gave just a few days after she took office, where she said, and I quote, "We are all part of the same community. There would be no European culture without Jewish culture, and there would be no Europe without Jewish people. Fostering Jewish life is something which I have always taken very seriously." So we are committed to fostering a better understanding with and among religious communities, including through open, transparent and regular dialogue between the EU institutions, churches, religious associations and philosophical and non-confessional organizations under the so-called Article 17 dialogue. Nothing can change our resolve to always ensure that everyone in Europe
has the right to freedom of religion. We will always uphold this fundamental right. We remain, of course, open to discuss the concerns that we are aware of the Jewish and Muslim communities in this context.
Thank you, Christian. Are there other questions on this issue? Nawab, is your question on this?
Yes. I would like to ask you also, because this ruling of the court also affects the Muslim communities in all of Europe. So I have not understood what is your position towards this ruling, because this will also mean that there will be a ban on the ritual slaughter. It could be possible. So please, if you can clarify your position.
I'm sorry, Nawab, but I don't believe that the court ruling concerns a ban. But Christian will be able to specify that. But I have not heard that the court ruling in Luxembourg has anything to do with a ban on this process. It is much more simply an analysis which is given, an opinion which is given to the Belgian court on the Flemish decree that sets a certain number of conditions on ritual slaughter. Christian, do you want to add anything?
Yes, well, I could probably add that a few more legal details from the court, as you're asking about this, from the court's ruling. It can be inferred that member states can adopt strict national rules on slaughter aimed at ensuring more extensive protection of animals at the time of killing, under the condition that they adequately consider the requirements of the freedom of religion, as is of course guaranteed by the Charter of Fundamental Rights, and show on the basis of scientific evidence and societal concerns that such stricter rules are necessary. And let me stress once more that we have full understanding of the concerns of the Muslim and the Jewish communities brought by the judgment, and that we remain, as always, open to discuss such concerns with the Jewish and Muslim communities.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, Werner, we move to you.
Different issue. Advocate General Tanczew included in his opinion on Polish judges yesterday also a quite interesting opinion on the judgment by the German National Court on the PSPP action by the ECB, saying, among others, that no national court is allowed by the treaties to overrule a Court of Justice judgment. And if a national court is of the opinion that that the European judgment contradicts the national judgment, the national court should ask the national government to leave the EU, among others. Does the Commission have any comment on this? And more specifically, you know that President von der Leyen in spring announced that the Commission will open an infringement proceeding against Germany on this. We didn't hear anything on that anymore. Does the Commission still intend to open an infringement proceeding? Thank you.
Thank you. Christian.
Sorry, Verena, I didn't fully understand the very beginning of your question. So on which judgment were you referring to, if I may just ask to clarify?
It was on an opinion of the Advocate General related, if I understand well, to the PSPP program of the ECB, but in the context of a different issue related to Polish judges. But the question concerns basically what we are going to do about the ruling by the court in Karlsruhe.
Yeah, I think on the ruling that or the opinion that you mentioned, that would be more a question for Marta. But I'm happy to give you the latest on and our position on the primacy of EU law, which is of course very clear. The Commission has constantly affirmed the primacy of EU law and that all judgments of the Court of Justice are binding on all national courts. I think we have said this several times, and the President herself was clear when saying that the final word is on EU law is always spoken in Luxembourg. The Commission is in contact with the German authorities to address the issues raised by the judgment of the German Constitutional Court of 5 May this year. The Commission has a strong interest to ensure that both the Eurosystem and the Union court system can function properly at all times, and that the ECB and the court execute their respective mandates and roles as foreseen in the treaty. The Commission has not yet taken a decision as to whether or not to open an infringement procedure on the concrete case.
Thank you. I see only one hand raised, so we will move to you, Tommaso.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, Eric. Tommaso LECCA, News Agency. I have a question, is on another topic. Roughly 2 hours ago, Commissioner Hahn said that the Italian government submitted to the European Commission a draft of the reforms that would be financed through the Recovery and Resilience Facility. Can you please confirm, first of all, if you received or not this document? And considering Commissioner Hahn referred to a draft, I assume it is confidential, but I hope not as confidential as the contract with Pfizer. So I was hoping if you can tell us what are these reforms about. Thank you.
Okay, first a point of process, Tommaso. As you will understand, we are not here to infirm what commissioners have said. You have a statement by Commissioner Hahn. This definitely stands. On further details, I don't know if Marta can add anything. Marta, on the Italian plan.
Thank you very much. Maybe a few words indeed on the process we are currently in. I mean, as you know, we have been in touch for quite some time now with all the member states, including Italy, of course, on the preparations of the recovery and resilience plans. Those talks have obviously now intensified very much. But as you know, it's also not the moment for us now to comment on the details of those plans because, this is subject to the ongoing discussions. So, and as you know, of course, now that the political agreement on the RRF has been reached, and we hope that the regulation will enter into force very quickly, member states will also be able to submit formally their plans. So again, those plans are still, let's say, a work in progress. So I would not be able to provide you further comments at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions for us today? Georgi.
Oui, bonjour Eric. Écoute, tu as dit hier, c'est notre dernière réunion de midi et je me demandais si c'était pas aussi l'occasion pour toi de dire ce que tu penses de l'année qui vient de s'écouler et comment on va continuer. Moi, je te pose une seule question. Moi, j'en ai marre des réunions online. Enfin, la technologie, c'est bien, mais c'est beaucoup mieux de se voir en vrai. Donc, dis-moi, s'il te plaît, ce qu'on pourrait espérer de l'année prochaine. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Georgi. Tu m'offres une transition parfaite vers la fin de ce dernier briefing midday de l'année, effectivement. La première chose que je voudrais dire, c'est que nous restons bien entendu disponibles pendant les 3 jours ouvrables qui restent, mais aussi de manière générale, comme toujours. Vous trouverez toute l'information sur les porte-paroles qui sont à votre disposition sur notre site habituel. Tu as tout à fait raison que ça a été une année très mouvementée, tout à fait exceptionnelle. Pour nous, mais aussi et tout particulièrement pour vous qui avez dû travailler en grande partie depuis chez vous. Et c'est vrai que notre salle de presse est fermée maintenant depuis beaucoup trop longtemps à nos yeux. Comme tu le sais, ça n'est pas une décision qui dépend de nous, mais qui dépend vraiment de l'évolution de la pandémie. Il est clair que nous avons fait, je crois, de part et d'autre, des efforts assez surhumains pour continuer à travailler ensemble, et je voudrais vous en remercier parce que vous avez fait preuve d'une grande flexibilité par rapport aux contraintes que nous avons été dans l'obligation d'imposer pour pouvoir continuer à tenir ce midday. Je crois qu'effectivement, nous avons nécessairement perdu en qualité d'échange parce qu'un contact par écran interposé et par micro interposé ne peut jamais avoir la même qualité qu'un contact personnel ici en salle de presse. Le seul avantage pour moi, c'est que je n'ai pas besoin de mettre mes lunettes parce que je vous vois très bien sur l'écran, ce qui n'est pas toujours le cas quand vous êtes au fond de la salle, mais c'est un bien maigre avantage par rapport à celui de pouvoir discuter avec vous directement. Donc la première chose, c'est que je voudrais vous dire merci de votre patience et d'avoir continué à jouer le jeu avec nous. Et je voudrais aussi dire merci évidemment à tous les porte-paroles et à toute l'équipe qui a continué à travailler, parce que si vous en avez marre d'être chez vous, vous pouvez aussi comprendre que c'est le cas pour toutes les personnes du SPP qui travaillent depuis des mois chez elles pour continuer à vous fournir les informations dont vous avez besoin pour faire votre travail. Et j'espère que nous pouvons dire ensemble que nous avons continué à fournir le meilleur service possible dans les conditions qui sont les nôtres. En ce qui concerne les perspectives pour l'année prochaine, écoutez, on a parlé vaccin. Nous espérons bien entendu que la situation va progressivement revenir à la normale. Vous connaissez comme nous l'évolution de la situation épidémiologique en Europe. Nous sommes encore loin d'être revenus à une situation qui pourrait être considérée satisfaisante. Les jours et les semaines à venir vont être particulièrement importantes de ce point de vue-là. Et donc, pour l'instant, nous restons dans un schéma où nous continuerons à utiliser ce système virtuel début d'année prochaine, avec bien entendu comme objectif, dès que les conditions seront réunies, de rouvrir au moins partiellement la salle de presse. En attendant, je vous recommande de continuer à nous contacter autant que vous le souhaitez par téléphone. Nous restons bien entendu disponibles aussi pour faire du off the record, du background, etc., par d'autres moyens qu'une rencontre physique. Vous pouvez aussi éventuellement demander une rencontre avec un porte-parole. Vous savez que nous laissons entrer sur invitation des journalistes. Il m'est arrivé de recevoir l'un ou l'autre d'entre vous dans mon bureau. Ce que nous devons éviter, tout simplement, afin de nous assurer que nous soyons en mesure de respecter les mesures de sécurité sanitaire, ce sont des groupes qui se forment pour des discussions informelles qui pourraient effectivement mener à une transmission plus élevée du virus. En tout cas, voilà, pour ma part, je voudrais tout simplement dire que j'ai été ravi de pouvoir travailler avec vous et avec mes collègues tout au long de cette première année. C'est une année qui a été une année d'apprentissage pour nous. Je sais que nous avons parfois des désaccords sur la manière dont la communication devrait se passer. Je crois que ça fait malheureusement partie du jeu, mais que sur le fond, vous pouvez être sûr que nous faisons tout ce qui est en notre pouvoir pour informer sur l'Europe et vous permettre d'informer sur l'Europe. Et je suis sûr que l'année prochaine, nous continuerons à améliorer notre coopération. Donc, je vous souhaite de bonnes fêtes, un repos bien mérité, même si je sais que nous allons tous continuer à travailler en partie, car certains dossiers ne sont pas fermés. Nous restons à votre disposition et nous nous retrouverons ici en salle de presse début janvier. Merci beaucoup et à très bientôt.